Greetings guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video where my accessories are extremely distracting. In today's video, I'm being distracted by my own earrings and goggles in the viewfinder. I look like a fly with a rubber ducks. Anyway, in today's video, we are going to be looking at some memes because we all love memes, especially when they are made by the right, trying to make points that just do not hit. They just really aren't very funny. They have 3 jokes and none of them are funny. So we're gonna laugh at them. So we are going to start off with this one that is propaganda for our kids. And it's about TV and movies. And the good guys are always multiracial groups and the bad guys are always white. And listen, the bad guys might always be white, they aren't, but they do also always have accents. And I find it so funny. Every time I am watching an American movie or TV show and I hear an accent from a character that's not like the protagonist or in their like friend group, I hear an accent and I'm like, that's the villain. And 9 times out of 10, I'm right. It's true. You hear an accent in an American movie, villain, every time. It's so funny. Like, they might be white, sure, but they're not American. They are foreign. And 9 times out of 10, they're Russian or they're German. Sometimes they're British. It's usually Russian or German, and they're always the villain. I've never once met a German or Russian character that isn't the villain. Try name me one movie, please, because I, actually don't know. I actually don't know. Except, I guess Black Widow, the Avengers, but she doesn't have a Russian accent, so it doesn't count. It's so funny. It's so funny. Oh my god. That aside, based off of these images and the examples that you've used here, this is a really terrible display of this because you're using the bad guys from Harry Potter, who are all white. But all the good guys are also all white. So you're not proving any point with that other than Harry Potter is not very racially diverse. And then the Power Rangers, I believe the good guys are all multiracial, they're not all white, which, okay, cool, but I googled it and not all the villains on that show are white. There are some Asian villains and some other villains of color that they're not all white. So again, you proved no point. I don't know what the other one is. But if you're gonna try to make this point, at least use examples from the same source, because you did the opposite of proving a point with this one. So good job. You're wrong. Next up, we have a group of people of different ethnicities and cultures saying, "This Halloween, please remember our culture is not your costume." Very true. And then angry white blonde people saying, "Why are you speaking English using electricity, cars, planes, and computers? That's our culture." Technology isn't culture, first and foremost. Let's get that out of the way. Technology is not culture. It's an invention, it's things that we use, but it's not cultural. And also, white people didn't invent all of those things. A lot of the time, people of color invented things and then white people took credit for them. Yeah, that's a thing that happened and still happens and has always happened. But even regardless, that's not a cultural thing. Things that we make aren't tied to our culture. And also, not all white people speak English, and not all English-speaking countries are white. So, bro. If you think that culture is technology, you have absolutely no idea what culture is, because, you're not even using the same argument back at them. They're not saying you aren't allowed to speak our language, you aren't allowed to eat our food, you aren't allowed to participate in anything that has anything to do with our people. They're not even saying that. They're just saying don't wear their traditional wear as a costume. So you're not even trying to fight for the same point here, because you're admitting that white people don't have a culture. We don't have cultural dress. There's nothing really cultural that we do that you would be offended by other people doing, because we kind of have taken our culture and forced it on the entire world. So, yeah. There are times in which wearing another culture's costume, for lack of a better word, is appropriate. Absolutely. Like, if you are invited to a traditional ceremony, you should wear their traditional wear, because that's respectful. And if you don't do that, then you're being disrespectful. But that's not wearing it as a costume. That's wearing it as a respect and as an appreciation of their culture, because you've been invited to a cultural event. And if you decline wearing their cultural things to their event, that's disrespectful and effectively being like, I'm too good for that though. I'm white. I don't participate in other people's cultures. That's fucked up. Don't do that. But that's not wearing them as a costume. No one's saying you can't ever wear their clothing or participate in their culture. They're just saying not to do it as a costume. And if you're pissed off about that, then that clearly just shows you did want to wear it as a costume because you don't view it as a real culture and you have every intention of making fun of it and mocking it, which isn't cool. That's why it's a problem. This always makes me think though, it always reminds me, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, so I want to talk about this really quick. In New Zealand, they have at schools like a culture day or a culture week. I don't know if this is still a thing, but it was when I went to school, and that was, 6 years ago, a while back. For most of my life at school, every year there was a culture day or a culture week where you came to school dressed as another culture, and everyone would come to school dressed as another culture. And all the activities and classes at school would revolve around culture and different countries. So it was never as like a way of like make fun of a culture or whatever, but we were encouraged to like learn about a culture and then dress as that and something that was important to them, and then talk about it and why it was important and what we were wearing and what it symbolized. And then all of the classes at school would revolve around different cultures. So each classroom would be focused on a different place and a different like tradition. So there would be like one class would be, we'd be learning about like traditional Indian food and like their culture and what that means. And then other classes were like, we did like art. So in one of our classes we did like traditional Tongan art. And then there was classes where we did like history, and the whole week or day, depending on what school it was dedicated to learning about different cultures. And I thought that was really cool. That's a really common thing that we do there. And I realized that like, that's not a thing in very many places. And I'm really intrigued to know what you all think of that, because it is dressing as another culture, but it is done with the intent of education and appreciation. So I'm curious to know your thoughts. In New Zealand, we do talk about this stuff really differently to how we do on the internet, and I find it really interesting. Like, we encourage participating in cultural events, and we all like participate in like kapa haka and like traditional Māori things, and we all have to learn the language, and we all do all of that like despite your ethnicity. And I know that's not a thing in a lot of places, and so I'm genuinely just very curious, because my understanding and upbringing around cultural appreciation is very different to a lot of people's. So that's always been a question I've had. The 99% needs a raise. No, the 99% needs to take responsibility for their choices. A minimum wage earner earns $7.25 an hour, which means they have to work half an hour to buy a gallon of milk. A median wage earner earns $16.57 an hour, which means they have to work 13 minutes to buy a gallon of milk. And then a CEO guy earns $20,160 an hour and has to work 0.01 seconds to buy a gallon of milk. Let's read the difference about them. So, the minimum wage worker dropped out of high school to play video games, hasn't read a book in 14 years, has watched every episode of The Kardashians, has 3 kids from 3 different baby mamas, can name every player on the LA Dodgers, including their batting average, has spent minutes on personal development, refuses to go the extra mile, has a $300 pair of Air Jordans, and believes the lottery and casinos are his best investment. And then the CEO guy dropped out of college to pursue a business, mopped floors for minimum wage while struggling to build a business, reads 4 books a month while working 75 hours a week, can't name any American Idol winners and wouldn't recognize a Kardashian, has spent years on his personal development, has worked weekends while all his worked weekends while all his buddies were at the bar drinking, company provides value to 30,000 people yearly, believes his choices are his best investment. There is a lot to unpack here, starting with the hypocrisy of minimum wage worker bad, but CEO guy good, and worked minimum wage. You're getting some signals crossed here. If it's bad to work minimum wage, and be working minimum wage means you've dropped out of school, you've never done anything with your life, and you're never going to achieve anything, then why are you saying CEO guy is good because he used to work minimum wage while starting up a business? You can't say working minimum wage is bad and a bad choice while also saying you want to be rich, work minimum wage to start with. It's a little bit contradictory. It's a tiny little bit contradictory. Also, fucking so funny of you to say that CEO guy works weekends while his buddies are out drinking at a bar, but someone working minimum wage never works weekends. You think people working minimum wage don't have to take shifts while their friends are hanging out? When I worked minimum wage, I worked literally every day that I wasn't at uni. I worked Sundays, I worked every public holiday. I worked constantly. I was either at uni or I was at work. I never had time to go out with my friends or do anything. And that is the life of most minimum wage workers, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but it costs so much money to just be alive. So you kind of have to just work literally all the time. And you can't take days and weeks to invest in yourself because you don't have the time to do that because you're forced to work so that you can afford to live. And you can't move up the ladder because you don't have any time to improve yourself or find new skills because you have to keep working at this stupid minimum wage job. People who work minimum wage are not all high school dropouts, and people who are CEOs didn't all drop out of college. Also, I'm sorry, if you're earning $20,000 an hour, why are you working 75 hours a week? That seems like a really stupid move. That's not a really big brain move of you. Listen, maybe I'm not a CEO, so I'm thinking about this all wrong. But if I made $20,000 an hour, I wouldn't work 75 hours a week. The company seems to be, up and running. That's what company directors and managers and stuff are for. A lot of CEOs don't do jack fucking shit when their companies are at a successful level. They pay other people to do it for them. And they still earn $20,000 a minute. Why are you working 75 hours a week? You are absolutely kidding yourself if you think Jeff Bezos works 75 hours a week. He absolutely does not. You think Elon Musk is working his ass off for 75 hours a week? No, he's not. He's too busy fucking firing everyone from Twitter and saying dumb shit on the internet. I promise they don't work that hard. Also, why is it a problem to own a $300 pair of shoes, but it's a good thing to own the newest iPhone? What's the difference? I don't quite understand. These are so oddly specific and doesn't apply to a majority of people in any of these positions. So I don't quite understand your logic or the point you're trying to prove. Yeah, the 99% does need a raise. And not only that, but the 1% need a massive cut. You could pay them less and pay people down here more, and then everyone's a little bit more on an equal level. People working minimum wage do work very, very hard, do deserve much more money, should be able to live. A lot of people, I saw a tweet today, are talking about how this generation, they complain, it's you don't like to work. Why does this generation not want to work? Why are they so lazy? Why don't they have ambitions? Why don't they want to do anything? Because there's no reward for it anymore. When you earn money, you're not earning money to like treat yourself and do fun things. You're earning money so you can live. There is no extra money. There is no savings. What can we do? We can't buy houses, can barely buy food. Electricity is an insane amount of money. Like, why would I want to work if I don't get anything out of it other than just living? I should be able to just live in general. I shouldn't need to work my ass off just to like pay rent. That's never been a thing before. It's fucked up. You want people to want to work and you want them to try harder and have bigger goals and aspirations and stuff. Pay people better, fix the fucking economy, and make housing affordable. And then society will be more productive. We're just in a really fucked up position right now. So no one wants to work because no one gains anything from working. So the EU, Australia, UK, and Canada are saying to the US, you're the only first world country not to have free healthcare, gun control, or hate speech laws, lol. And then the US says, yes, I realize that we are the last true liberal democracy in the world. Our people have chosen not to be dependent on, nor slaves to, the government as a whole. Says the person who pledges allegiance to the flag every morning since the age of 5 years old and wants to continue that forever. Says the person from the country who puts trillions of dollars into a military and military propaganda, where everyone's like, I would die for this country. America is the greatest country in the world. I fucking love America. God save America. We are the best. Land of the free. Sounds an awful lot like you fucking love your country. Sounds an awful lot like you love your government and you are dependent on them and are a slave to them, because if you're willing to stand there and say you will die for your country, that sounds like you're a slave to them. If you're going to pledge allegiance to your flag and get mad if people don't participate in singing the national anthem, that sounds like you're a slave to your country. If you are willing to lay down your life and die for your country, you are a slave to your country. You want to be pro-military, pro-gun, pro-blah, blah, blah. You are dependent on your government. Again, with this, like, healthcare thing, like, we've chosen not to be dependent on our government. You don't have to be dependent on your government. You don't have to use free healthcare if you don't want to. You can pay to go to the doctor if you want to. You can pay for healthcare if you want to. You can be completely independent. Private healthcare exists. If you don't want to wait in a wait list for a surgery or anything like that, go private. You can do that. You don't have to be dependent on the government. The thing is that there should be an option to be dependent on the government, because not everyone can afford healthcare. Not everyone can afford the basic necessities of life, and it needs to be an option to be able to have that. You pay for insurance, right? It's the same fucking thing. It's the same thing. So yeah, you don't have to be dependent on your government in order to have that available to everyone. Yeah. Also, hate speech laws. Do you not have hate speech laws? That's kind of fucked up. I thought you did. You should really get on that. Hello, I just turned 18. I would like a beer, please. No, you aren't old enough to be responsible. Hello, I just turned 18. I would like to get arsed on camera by 10 strangers for money. It is your right as an American. I mean, I agree that the drinking age in the US is a bit ridiculous, considering it's not like that literally anywhere else. I do think it's very funny that it's 21 for drinking there and it's 18 everywhere else, 16 in some places. In New Zealand, you can legally drink at literally any age as long as you have parental consent. You just can't buy the alcohol. 21 it's an interesting age to have chosen. But also I kind of get it. It messes with your brain development, so like, go off. People are gonna drink anyway. It doesn't really change that much, but it's fine. Having sex on camera at 18 is also totally fine. You're an adult. You can consent. What's the issue? Why are you comparing these? There is no comparison at all. Drinking alcohol and having sex are not the same thing. If you're 18 and you want to get naked on camera and have sex on camera, that's fine. You do you. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. And if you have a problem with that, my guy, don't watch it. Don't watch it. Yeah, you don't get to control what other adults do with their bodies. And why is it that it's always the women that end up in these memes? What about the 18-year-old men who do it? Why aren't they in the meme? What about the 10 people she said she wants to have sex with? What about them? Why aren't they in the meme? Men are sex workers too. Why do they never get shit on? Why do they never get criticized? Do you just believe men have male autonomy and women don't? Probably. Yeah. Fucked up. Any adult can be a sex worker. If you have a problem with women doing it, you have to have a problem with men doing it. But the better solution is to just not care. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. This is a conversation between a black woman and a white woman. And it starts off with the black woman saying, I was talking to this guy and he said, you can be racist to white people. Lol, girl, no, you can't be racist to white people, right? And then the white woman says, you can in fact be racist to white people. You can be racist to any race. So she replies with, Snow Roach, stop trying to silence black voices when I'm speaking on a topic that I have knowledge and research on. This is so ridiculous. This argument needs to stop. I think people are greatly confusing xenophobia and racism constantly. It happens all the time. You cannot be racist towards someone for being white because no matter what you do, no matter what you say to them, you can't take their whiteness away from them. You can't remove that privilege from them. No matter what you say about them being white, it's not going to hurt their place in the hierarchy of society. It's not going to make them any less white privilege. You might have your feelings hurt. A white person can be upset and be like, they called me a mean word. And that's valid, right? That's fine. You can have your feelings hurt. But it's not racist. It's bullying, maybe. It's not racist because it doesn't hurt you in your privilege and where you stand in society. Bullying? Sure. Racism? No. However, I do see a lot of people getting like racism and xenophobia really mixed up because you can't be racist towards white people, but you can be xenophobic towards white people, right? Like, especially like white foreigners who don't speak English. It's obviously going to be harder to find a job. You're still a foreigner and people don't like foreigners. That is a thing that you're going to run into. A way to put it into perspective, and I'm going to use the US here as a base because these are obviously all American posts, is a white American-born person is going to have the most privilege in terms of like race and ethnicity. A white person born in, say, Germany, who is now in the US and doesn't speak very much English, is going to have less privilege in terms of people can be xenophobic towards them and say that they're taking jobs and they can say that they should go back to their own country. It can be harder to find a job. It can be harder to find somewhere to live. It can be harder to get onto benefits or impossible to get onto benefits even. It is harder to be a foreigner in a different country. Absolutely. However, that white person, despite not being from the US, will still have white privilege in the sense of like, you know, a cop isn't gonna know that they're not American. They don't have the racial stereotypes and prejudice against this person because all they see them as is a white person. You're taking it at face value. This is a white person. So they have white privilege. They have racial privilege. Ethnicity and background-wise, it can be an issue and they can face discrimination for not being American, but it's not racism, it's xenophobia. And then people will argue that, well, you can have racism towards white people in non-white monocultural countries, such as like Japan, right? They say that there's a lot of racism towards white people and it's possible to be racist towards white people there. And I get what you mean. I get where you're coming from. However, again, it's xenophobia, not racism. They have a thing against foreigners, not white people. And if you're a foreign white person, you are going to have privilege over foreign people of color. Absolutely. Because whiteness kinda has taken over the world. In the global society, white people have privilege. And if you are white, you are going to be privileged above all other people of color in any place that you go. That's just the way it goes. You can face xenophobia as a white person. You cannot face racism as a white person. You can be discriminated against as a white person, but it's not because you're white. Your whiteness is not ever a discriminating factor. The fact you're a foreigner can be a discriminating factor. And then obviously the fact if you're like a woman or you're queer, etc. Those can all be things that you were discriminated against for. But being white is not. I hope that cleared it up for you. All right, we're gonna finish on a banger. This man has a photo of a naked woman on his wall, and wants to be with her and believes that in order to be with her, he needs to be buff. So he starts working out while staring at this photo of a naked woman on his wall until he gets super buff. And then he goes out with said woman, or an equally as hot woman, I believe is implied. And she's talking about her body count. And he gets upset and angry that woman has sex. So he becomes a Nazi. Yeah, or alternatively, he wants to have sex with Hitler, because at the start he was working out looking at a picture of a naked woman, now he's working out looking at a picture of Hitler. It's kind of the same as being a Nazi, just to the extreme. And I have so many thoughts and questions about this one. How does women having sex turn you into a Nazi? Where did that come from? How did we get here? How is that even something that enters the realm of possibilities? How are you a Nazi? Why did you become a Nazi? A woman was like, yeah, I've had sex. I like having sex. And you're like, well, I guess genocide. Bro? Please get help. Please seek help. That's so fucked up. That's like the most messed up thing ever. The fact that there are people whose brains are like this and who think like this is like terrifying. This is why women are scared of men. This is why women are scared of men, because if we reject you, you become a Nazi. Not even if we reject you. You were literally on a date. She just said that she had sex with other people and you're like, well, fuck women. What? Please, if you ever have an intrusive thought about killing women, get help. Yeah, so women can sleep with who they want. You can sleep with who you want, as long as it's consensual. And when a woman tells you that they've had sex before, maybe just, if that's a problem to you, date someone else. I don't know. I think it's weird to have a problem with it, but like, if it is a problem, then just don't date them. You don't have to. Why you hate all women because this one woman has had sex with people before? Weird, man. It's weird. You're weird. Anyway, I'm gonna leave now because, as usual, I have a headache. Like, genuinely, these goggles are squeezing my brain a little bit and now I have a really bad headache. So I'm gonna go have some water. I hope that you enjoyed this video. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. And a huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Wolf, Toulouse, Bobby, Sparrow, Josh, Mandy, Robbie, Christy, Ikazel, the Alienated Librarian, Non-Euclid System, Skylar Dowd, Ishtar Hope, and Eldo. I love and appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to become a patron, you can click the top link in the description or go to patreon.com/savvycat. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early, as well as our podcasts a week early. And then from £3 up, you get things such as outtakes, live streams, bonus footage, etc. Anything helps, and I appreciate your support hugely. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. When you close your eyes.